Anyone born after, say, 2005 has grown up in a world where every film and TV show ever made is just sitting there, waiting to be watched. No drama, no planning required. But not so long ago, things worked very differently. Friday night meant a trip to the video store, hoping your first choice hadn't already been rented out. Television ran on its own schedule, not yours. Miss that Tuesday night episode, and you'd be waiting months for a rerun. The cinema was an occasion, something you actually planned for. Fast forward to today, and streaming looks like the dream scenario we'd been waiting for. Endless options, zero effort, watch whatever, whenever. But here's the thing. This convenience came with consequences nobody quite predicted. Streaming hasn't just changed how we consume entertainment, it's reshaped what gets produced and who holds the power to create it. Today, we'll dive into how the advent of streaming technology disrupted the media industry, and we'll look at what shakeups are still on the horizon. Let's get started. Streaming is to Netflix what Google is to search engines. No one's ever suggested HBO Max and chill as a Friday night plan. How did Netflix achieve and maintain its streaming dominance? Netflix started life in 1997 as a DVD by mail service, the kind of idea that sounds charmingly quaint now. But in 2007, the company made a pivot that would reshape the entire entertainment industry. It launched its streaming platform. The mechanism was simple but revolutionary. Pay a flat monthly fee and watch unlimited content instantly, streamed directly to your screen. No more trips to the video store, no more waiting for DVDs in the mail, no more late fees. The subscription model made access feel effortless and unlimited. You weren't renting individual titles anymore. You were buying into an entire library. Suddenly, entertainment became an always-on utility rather than a transaction-by-transaction experience. Then came the content that transformed Netflix from a convenient library into a cultural force. House of Cards arrived in 2013. Kevin Spacey as a ruthless politician, David Fincher directing, with a reported $100 million budget for the first 2 seasons. This wasn't just prestige television. It was a declaration that streaming could compete with anything HBO had to offer. More shows, like Orange is the New Black, followed. These shows didn't just attract subscribers, they made Netflix essential. But the real genius lies beneath the surface, in what you don't see. The algorithm. Open Netflix on your account and you'll see a completely different homepage than your friend sees on theirs. The platform tracks everything: what you watch, when you pause, which episodes you abandon halfway through, even how long you hover over a title before moving on. Every data point feeds into Netflix's understanding of your preferences. Even the thumbnail promoting the same show gets tailored. One viewer might see an action shot, another a romantic moment, all based on what the data suggests will make them click. That "what to watch next" prompt isn't a friendly suggestion. It's precision engineered to keep you watching, to keep you engaged, to keep you subscribed. Netflix turned viewing habits into predictive science, and every streaming platform since has followed the same playbook. Netflix didn't just change how we watch television. It fundamentally changed what television is. It transformed entertainment from scheduled programming into an on-demand utility, from appointment viewing into algorithmic suggestions, from passive consumption into personalized obsession. The company that started mailing DVDs became the architect of a new entertainment paradigm, one where the platform knows what you want to watch before you do. In doing so, Netflix didn't just dominate streaming, it made streaming the dominant form of entertainment itself. Netflix may have claimed the territory first, but it didn't take long for everyone else to realize streaming was the future, and they each brought their own playbook. Amazon Prime Video launched in 2006, actually predating Netflix's streaming service by a year, though it took longer to gain traction. Amazon's strategy was brilliantly straightforward. Bundle streaming into Prime membership. The pitch wasn't just watch our shows, it was get free delivery, music, books, and oh, by the way, here's a full streaming service too. Streaming became the sweetener that kept people subscribing to Amazon's entire ecosystem. And when they did splash out on original content like The Grand Tour, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and more recently The Lord of the Rings of Power, It wasn't just about winning awards. It was about keeping Prime members from canceling. Apple TV Plus arrived in 2019 with a different approach entirely: quality over quantity. Where Netflix boasted thousands of titles, Apple launched with a handful of high-profile originals, like Ted Lasso and The Morning Show, and positioned itself as the prestige option. For a company selling expensive hardware, streaming was another thread in the Apple lifestyle, another reason to stay locked into the ecosystem. Then there's YouTube, which operates on completely different logic. It's free, ad-supported, and relies on an endless stream of user-generated content rather than expensive studio productions. YouTube didn't need to compete with Netflix's back catalog. It had billions of hours of content uploaded by creators every day. Its premium tier offers ad-free viewing, but the platform's real power is in its ubiquity and its algorithm's ability to keep people watching whatever comes next. Disney Plus launched in 2019 and played its strongest hand: legacy. Decades of beloved films, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, National Geographic, all sitting behind one subscription. Other studios followed suit: Warner Bros. With HBO Max, Paramount Plus, Peacock from NBC Universal. Each brought their own libraries, their own franchises, their own attempts to claw back content they'd once licensed to Netflix. What began as Netflix's revolution became an industry-wide scramble. Each platform arrived with its own angle. Amazon bundled convenience, Apple sold prestige, YouTube offered endless variety, Disney traded on nostalgia. But the result was fragmentation. The promise of streaming was simplicity: one service, everything you want to watch. Instead, the content that once lived together got carved up and scattered across a dozen different apps, each demanding its own monthly fee. When we think about streaming, we usually imagine the passive experience: scrolling through Netflix, clicking play, settling into the sofa, watching. Platforms like Twitch, YouTube Live, and TikTok Live have turned millions of ordinary people into broadcasters, streaming everything from gaming sessions to cooking tutorials to just chatting with an audience in real time. The economics are surprisingly straightforward. Viewers can subscribe to channels, donate during streams, or watch ads, and the streamer takes a cut. Some are pulling in audiences that rival traditional television. Tyler Ninja Blevins became a household name streaming Fortnite, at his peak drawing over 600,000 concurrent viewers and earning millions annually. Pokimane started streaming League of Legends in 2013 and became one of the first streamers to center content around personality rather than pure gameplay skill, averaging over 22,000 viewers by 2020 and earning an estimated $1.5 million from Twitch alone between 2019 and 2021. Then there's the extreme end: a streamer called Emily CC who ran a continuous 3-year broadcast on Twitch, an endurance feat that bordered on performance art. Why the explosion? Increased smartphone use made streaming accessible to anyone with a decent connection. The pandemic accelerated everything. When live performers couldn't tour or gig, they turned to streaming, discovering new revenue streams and intimate ways to connect with fans. But it's not all success stories. Burnout is rampant when your income depends on being on for hours every day. The platforms have significant problems with harassment, particularly sexism and misogyny directed at women streamers. And then there's the darkest aspect: live streaming has been weaponized. The Christchurch and Halle terror attacks were broadcast live, and platforms still struggle, to moderate and remove this content fast enough, despite sophisticated hashing technology. Yet for all the problems, live streaming has created something genuinely new: real-time dialogue between creators and communities that's unfiltered and immediate in ways traditional media never achieved. As technology improves and these platforms mature, the question is whether they can preserve that connection while addressing the harm. The future likely involves better moderation, more sustainable models for creators, and perhaps a shift toward platforms that prioritize community safety alongside growth. Live streaming isn't going anywhere. It's just finding its footing. Remember the soundtrack of the early 2000s? Not the music itself, but that distinctive screech of a dial-up modem connecting followed by the agonizing wait as a single song crawled its way onto your computer through Napster. Those peer-to-peer file-sharing services turned everyone into digital music collectors, downloading tracks for free as long as the internet connection held. Napster sent shockwaves through the traditional music industry. Record executives watched helplessly as their carefully controlled distribution system crumbled. The backlash was swift and furious. Dr. Dre and Metallica led high-profile lawsuits, and by 2001, Napster was effectively shut down. But despite the legal victory, one thing had become crystal clear. The future of music was digital, whether the industry liked it or not. Apple recognized this reality and launched iTunes in 2003, offering a legitimate alternative where consumers could purchase individual tracks for 99 cents. iTunes didn't just sell music, it fundamentally reshaped how people built their libraries, moving from albums to singles and giving listeners unprecedented control over their collections. Then came 2008 and Spotify's ambitious mission: solve the piracy problem by making legal access to music so easy and affordable that people wouldn't bother stealing it. The streaming model spread like wildfire, and soon the future everyone predicted had fully arrived. But has this digital revolution benefited everyone equally? The uncomfortable truth is that artists earn remarkably little from streaming platforms. Spotify's royalty system remains frustratingly opaque, paying fractions of cents per stream, while Apple's StreamShare method distributes payments based on listening time. Compare this to the iTunes era, when artists received a more straightforward cut of each 99-cent sale, and the picture becomes troubling. Even successful musicians now depend heavily on touring and merchandise sales to make a living. Meanwhile, algorithmic playlists shape listener choices, making it increasingly difficult for new artists to break through the noise. Interestingly, this digital dominance has sparked a counter-movement. Vinyl sales are booming, driven partly by nostalgia for tangible music ownership. The streaming revolution democratized access to music, but it's worth asking, at what cost? The conversation around streaming often centers on sameness, entertainment flattened into uniformity by a handful of dominant platforms. To some extent, this concern rings true. Streaming has hollowed out local productions in many markets, with big-budget international content drowning out regional voices and smaller studios struggling to compete. But the reality isn't quite so straightforward. Regional trends reveal a far more complex picture. Consider India's Jio Hotstar, which understood that serving a population of 1.5 billion required rethinking everything. Recognizing that mobile usage in India far outpaces television streaming, they built a mobile-first platform from the ground up. Cricket isn't just a sport in Indian culture, it's practically a religion. Jio Hotstar bet big, securing exclusive rights to the Indian Premier League for 5 years at an eye-watering $6.3 million per match. Then came the masterstroke, offering completely free access to IPL coverage for the first 2 years. The gamble worked spectacularly, bringing in 280 million subscribers within just 6 months and positioning Jio Hotstar to rival Netflix's global reach. China tells a different story entirely. This market of 1.4 billion people remains tantalizingly out of reach for Western streamers, though Apple TV has pursued serious negotiations. Unlike democratic India, China's authoritarian government maintains iron control over its media. Currently, only domestic platforms like Tencent Video and Douyin officially serve the market, with all content subject to extensive censorship by the Chinese Communist Party. Yet even within these constraints, streaming thrives. The nationwide rollout of 5G has fueled explosive growth, reaching 400 million subscriptions by 2023. Africa presents yet another paradigm. When Netflix entered Nigeria in 2020 as the first major international streamer on the continent, they faced unique challenges. Africa's enormous geographical size, varying levels of infrastructure development, and inconsistent network connectivity. Netflix responded by investing in original African productions like Young, Famous and African and Soweto Love Story. Meanwhile, platforms like iRoko TV have carved their own path, streaming Nollywood films and African content globally, particularly reaching diaspora communities hungry for stories from home. The streaming revolution may be global, but its shape depends entirely on where you're standing. Streaming has profoundly shifted how we consume entertainment, news, sport, and music, and even how we relax and relate to each other. But the question remains, who do these shifts actually benefit? And as customers juggling multiple subscription charges each month, are we getting what we pay for? According to Forbes, people subscribe to an average of 2.8 services in 2023. That might not sound excessive until you tally up the monthly costs. By 2024, Deloitte research suggested consumers had reached their limit on what they're prepared to pay. The subscription fatigue is real. Then there's the content overwhelm. Endless scrolling through libraries sounds like abundance, but it often feels more like paralysis. Remember water cooler television, when everyone watched the same show and discussed it the next day? That shared cultural experience has largely evaporated. Though there's a counterpoint here. Specialty streaming services now cater to niche interests in ways traditional television never could. Take Thunderflix, the world's first heavy metal streaming service, offering headbangers exactly what they want without wading through irrelevant content. But let's talk about costs. Netflix, Disney Plus, and their competitors only reached profitability around 2024. That's excellent news for shareholders, but how did they finally get into the green? Partly by raising subscription prices and cracking down on password sharing, practices that felt particularly stingy given streaming's early promises of affordability and convenience. Perhaps most frustratingly, advertising has returned. Platforms now offer cheaper ad-supported tiers, but this feels like a bait-and-switch when customers were originally sold an ad-free product as streaming's great advantage over traditional television. And what about streaming's youngest consumers? Services featuring shows like Cocomelon, produced by companies like Moonbug, raise serious questions. Streaming makes screen time easier than ever. No scheduling conflicts, infinite episodes at the tap of a button. But this content is specifically designed to capture and retain children's attention. What impact does this have on developing minds already spending unprecedented hours in front of screens? Streaming promised convenience and choice. Whether it's delivering value increasingly feels like the wrong question, because we're locked in either way.